Hello, esteemed colleagues. It is such an honor to be with you. My name is Lindsey Beagle. I'm the Senior Director of Lifelong University Engagement at Arizona State University in the United States. It has been such a delight to share this conference time with you, to learn alongside you and to learn from you. I look forward to this session number 7, the title of which is the role of universities in addressing local challenges, engaging communities, and promoting learning cities. Now, as a moderator, I have quite a challenge ahead of me. As you can do the math yourselves, we are right before lunch and starting a bit late. And also, we actually have the privilege of hearing from 5 speakers during this session. So the way that I will run this session is to permit all of the speakers to use all 12 of their minutes. But then I will probably be at the end of time and we won't have any time for questions, but I do encourage you to follow up with these incredible speakers at lunch and to follow up with some more robust conversation. The first speaker I'd like to introduce is Ms. Edith Hammer, Program Specialist in the Skills Throughout Life program at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning. Edith.
Hello, good morning still. We have, I think, 5 minutes left to say good morning officially. I'm very pleased today to speak about the topic of university social responsibility and community engagement, and to share with you some of the results from research that we conducted at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning. Some of this you have already heard yesterday, where you saw the quite spectacular launch of the Chinese versions of our 2 international reports on promoting lifelong learning in and through higher education. And in addition to these international reports, we have actually also conducted thematically focused research within this 3-year research project. And for these 3 areas, we looked more at practical examples of how universities are engaging with non-traditional groups of learners, with their local environments. So we had one project on universities' role in building learning cities. This connects to the UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities and the work we are doing there. So we wanted to create closer links or explore the links between these institutions and the learning cities development. A second project is addressing the needs of older people learning, and we will actually have a session following this one focusing particularly on that research. And I'm now happy to move to the University Social Responsibility, where we conducted a case study research, and I would like to share some of the results of our research today with you. So, as mentioned, we also conducted a global survey. And in that global survey, I would like to share with you 2 of the results. And the first one is that we, in the questionnaire that was responded to by 399 higher education institutions worldwide, in the questionnaire we asked, to what extent does your institution target the following groups through its lifelong learning activities? And what we can quite clearly see from the results is that the groups that are most prioritized, either strongly or to some extent, are working people that require upskilling and reskilling. This group is prioritized by 89% of all institutions surveyed. This is followed by providing lifelong learning offers for public and private organizations. Then women, this I think refers also to the very heavy efforts to create gender balance in higher education during the last 2 decades, and then higher education staff, so in-staff training. And then we can really see a drop. So these first 4 groups receive around up to 80% of prioritization, but then it drops to 60% when it comes to older people, to unemployed learners, to disabled people with disabilities. and even further down, people living in remote areas, ethnic and religious minorities are even less prioritized. And when we look at the groups of migrants and prisoners or former prisoners, there is actually, the shift is actually that they are not even half of the institutions selected those groups as priorities, and for prisoners, for example, only 25% offer some kind of lifelong learning provision for this group. So I think what we can see here is that lifelong learning provision is very much targeted on continuing education programs, is very much defined as work-based learning, but does not as much respond to the needs of non-traditional learners of vulnerable groups. And this is something that we picked up in our case study research, where we looked at how universities engage with communities to support non-traditional and vulnerable learners. So the second survey result, which I would like to share with you, is how universities engage with their communities, which type of institutions they work with, and what kind of offers they make. So institutions were asked to select these options, and almost all, 98% of institutions surveyed, selected at least one option. And the most common is to give public lectures, and other higher education institutions are actually the most relevant partners for universities. But also the provision of spaces for public learning events is an important way of opening up the university and bringing the public into the university, also sort of combating the stereotype of being very elitist and ivory tower kind of institutions. So we can see that there's really a broad variety of partners and ways that universities engage with their local communities. So now moving to the case studies research that we conducted, we selected 6 universities worldwide. The main criteria for selecting them was that we had already predefined some non-traditional or vulnerable groups that we were particularly interested in knowing more about. And then we looked at the regional distribution of institutions and identified these 6 institutions that already showed a relevant track record of engaging with this particular group. So we have one example from Germany, working on involving very strongly with refugees and migrants. We have an example of the Philippines working with prisoners. From Gulu University in Uganda, they have a very strong relation with rural populations. Afford University for Women, promoting higher education engagement for women, also in non-formal learning ways. And then University of Victoria in Canada, which has established a lot of programs and also very strongly institutionalized its relationship with the indigenous populations. And then the University of Ibagué in Colombia, which is engaged with local communities, particularly with victims of armed conflict. And so I would now like to share some general observations of the research and then zoom into this example of the University of Ibagué to give one concrete example, and we have limited time, so I prefer to focus on one of the institutions. But just to let you know, from the 6 case studies, we didn't do a comparative research because the conditions and the target groups are quite different. But we could see that one of the very important conditions for successful engagement with communities throughout the different case studies is that they meet at eye level, that it is a collaboration at eye level, that universities need to learn to respect also different forms of knowledge and knowledge production, of knowledge distribution, and not be the only owners of the knowledge and have a one-side transfer of knowledge, but really to create a participatory learning process. So this is one of the important criteria. And when it comes to challenges, what we could see often was to sustain projects over time, to keep people and institutions and partners engaged in the projects, particularly when the funding decreases, to find alternative, so to say, business models for sustaining these kind of relationships. So this was one of the main challenges in terms of sustainability of community engagement. So now moving to the case of the University of Ibagué, which I find very interesting because it's a quite particular situation, quite a particular community or community issue. And to embed this case a bit in the national environment, I think there are 2 points that are interesting to mention about higher education in Colombia. So first, it has a very strong tradition in Latin America, coming from the 1970s, a humanistic tradition of education, very much also based in the communities, and this view of a university of being open to society and being responsible and dedicated to the development of their territories. And this we can also see in Colombia. On the other hand, we can see a high level of centralization of higher education in the large cities of Bogota, Medellin or Cali, and it's much more difficult to access higher education when you go to the smaller towns and cities. And this problem was addressed by developing the regional university model, so establishing public and private universities and university centers throughout the country, also in the less urbanized regions. And the University of Ibagué is one example of a university that is strongly dedicated to community engagement and development of the region. It's a small university established in 1980, and it has 5,000 inhabitants and 5 faculties. It has engaged with this particular community, and I would like to also share some context of the other side of the community context. So in the case studies we always paid attention to reflect both sides, to conduct interviews on both sides, the university but also the community side, to have a comprehensive view of the collaborations. And the community context is, so Planadas is a village situated in the department of Tolima, kind of in the mid-southwest of Colombia, and it's a very rich environmentally and rich biodiverse region, and coffee growers have been based there for a long time, as well as the Nazawex community, indigenous community, and they have coexisted peacefully. Then since the 1940s, the FARC guerrilla has taken control of the territory, which led to decades of armed conflict. And in 2016, there was a peace agreement which could be sustained until now, and one of the key components of this peace agreement was to find a way to make these different groups, the indigenous community, the coffee growers, and the then ex-FARC guerrilla fighters, to live peacefully together, to find a common ground of living together. And what was established was the creation of a coffee brand. This region is actually the 3rd largest in Colombia in terms of coffee production, so it's a very important economic factor. And by getting these 3 communities together with a common purpose, that really helped to sustain peace in the village. And this project was initiated by the Agency for Reincorporation and Normalization, which brought the University of Ibagué on board, and later on, well, first it was led by this agency, later on the leadership of the project was really collaborative, and the main contribution of the university was through expertise in design and through participatory research. So professors and students were involved to co-design and develop this brand. And in terms of impact, you can see that apart from establishing autonomy and a strong economic basis, the main purpose was to to strengthen the dialogue and to bring people together on the table to exchange and to learn from each other, also about each other's culture. So to close with, I would just like to highlight some points when it comes to what do institutions need to transform into lifelong learning universities and to strengthen community engagements. It's important not to limit lifelong learning to upskilling and reskilling. It's important to engage with local communities, also contributing to social equity and to promote epistemic pluralism in a broad sense of its meaning. And last point I want to mention is that it is important to establish lifelong learning as a human right. And with that I would like to close. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Anwar. Next, I'd like to welcome our next speaker via Zoom, Mr. Patrizio Bianchi, who is the UNESCO Chair for Education, Growth, and Equality from the University of Ferrara in Italy. I should also mention he is the former Italian Minister of Education as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lindsey. And let me thank you, Edith, for the very wide and deep research that UNESCO Institute did on the various experiences that we had worldwide. Let me stress this point. Nowadays, we have to put together and to create connections among an extremely wide variety of experiences. And what is necessary is to understand that when we're speaking about lifelong learning, we are speaking about very, very different experiences. So the first level of lifelong learning is our long learning. The learning of the policymakers, the learning of the rectors, the learning of the council or at regional level, of the national government. Because we have to understand that the main issue that now we have is to create the condition to connect everybody in the world with other experiences. What we have to do today is to work for networking for peace. Stress this point, please. Around the world now, we have to create peace conditions. Nowadays, the world is full of conflicts, and these conflicts are impacting on human rights. On the other side, the main key to connect the people around the world is university. Don't forget it. Don't forget it that nowadays, university is the place of research, is the place of higher education, is the place of training, but is essentially university that means the capacity to connect the local context with the entire world network of universities. And inside of this perspective, I feel that now we have to discover also the role of UNESCO chairs. Let me say something on my own experience. Before having this extraordinary experience of Minister of Education of the entire country, a country that is a compound of different regions, from the extremely well developed countries in the north to many areas in the center, in the south, but also in the north that are marginal. We have at the end Professor Piazza that she can explain, for instance, from Sicily, how many different programs we have in the southern region of Italy. But in all these areas, as national government, we pushed the creation of networks. Networks between companies, between high school, between training center, and also university. But looking to understand which is the specificity of the local context. Don't forget it, that any local experiences is a different experience. But in order to learn from these experiences, we have to stress the basic methodological instrument of analysis. We have to create a common language to be real able to understand from the different experiences and to put the different experiences in connection. Edith explained beautifully the different case from Colombia. But we have to learn from Colombia, also for Italian experience, for Chinese experience, and when we speak that we have to connect the different world experiences, this means that we have also to work on that in order to create the really possibility to transfer experience from one context to another one. For instance, let me say my own experience. Before being Minister of Education of the national government, I was for many years regional Minister of Education of the region Emilia-Romagna. It is one of the well-developed areas in Italy. One of the issues that we had at that time was connected to automotive sector, because most of the automotive activity was transferring from Europe to China, and the risk is not to have any automotive activities in Italy. Automotive is crucial to diffuse innovation, and we cannot lose the basic knowledge that we have in a local context. So that as regional government, we promoted what we can call the motor valley. Motor valley was the capacity to put together the big producers, also of very high quality cars like Lamborghini or Ferrari, and the high number of components, because the real wealth of the area was knowledge, productive knowledge, production structure knowledge. But we need the universities, so that we put together the universities, ancient universities, historic universities, Bologna, Ferrara, Modena, Parma. And we created a new university called Motor Vehicle University, Emilia-Romagna, MUNER, M-U-N-E-R. And we started the process, putting together the basic engineering schools for young people and the lifelong learning for all the people working in the sector. Why it was so necessary to put together young people and also the existing workers? Because it's necessary to use lifelong learning to maintain the intergenerational dialogue, to maintain people able to speak together, because they have different competencies. Young people today are originally born digital people. On the other side, we have a long mechanical experience. They have to speak together. One of the basic issues of our work on lifelong learning is to allow people to speak together, to exchange experiences, to exchange knowledge, to exchange culture. Because we have not to create a contest having innovators, but we are working to have an innovator contest not just a local context, a local environment with innovator, but an innovator community. That means also a community that is able to learn from the experience of the others. And in this context, it's clear that the main issue is to create connections. To create connections also with very far context. The Motor Valley in Emilia-Romagna can learn from the coffee Colombia experience and vice versa. Consider that now we are in a very dramatic moment. Around the world there are a lot of conflicts. The peace is at risk today. And don't forget that the main issue of UNESCO is education for peace. In July 12th of this year, after 50 years, we were able to conclude the great work on the recommendation of education for peace. Today in Paris, we are starting the work for the General Assembly, and they are discussing that. The document that we approved in July, Recommendation for Peace, connecting peace with fundamental freedom, human rights, sustainable development. The way to work for peace today around the world is networking different experiences, networking different learning communities for world peace, for global peace. And I feel that the great work that we are doing today in Shanghai, it is Shanghai that is also arriving also to Europe through the online system. Don't forget that when we are working for learning communities at local level, we are working for freedom. We are working for allow everybody to have the possibility to participate to an effective sustainable development. Sustainability is not just environmental. Sustainability is not just economic issue. Sustainability is a social and political issue. And for that, the main way to regenerate our context at local and global level is to work on education. Don't forget it that the last United Nations Assembly, the last September 19, 2022, in New York, was devoted to consider that education is the main way to work on world development. The issue of last year United Nations Assembly was essentially work on the issue of reorganizing education is the way to reframe development at international level. For this reason, I feel that when we're speaking on long life, lifelong, on the idea to connect education with a basic education for children, providing basic fundamental issues that is the same that Jacques Delors at UNESCO provided at the end of the 90s. Learning as a process, learning to learn, learning to do, learning to be, learning to work together, are still today the fundamental long life, in this sense, basis, pillars for creating a lifelong learning. That is the capacity to allow everybody to maintain continuously the capacity to be updated in their basic knowledge. But don't forget it that all the experiences that Edith explained to us before in the extremely important research that she presented are relevant if they are the part of the common, of our worldwide common learning process. I feel that this is important, but I feel that this is also the duty and the goal that UNESCO has to do. UNESCO chairs network that we are creating worldwide, I think could be a fundamental instrument for creating this global learning continuous process. Let me thank you to everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Mr. Bianchi. That was incredibly inspirational. I'm now pleased to introduce our third speaker, Mr. Collin Pillay, Chief Policy Analyst in the Learning City of Durban, South Africa.
Good afternoon to you. In my country, I would say all protocols observed. So I'm going to kick straight into the presentation itself, given that we have got very limited time. Colleagues, reflecting on each of the presentations right from yesterday morning, there's a group of common words that come through in my own reflection, listening to each of the speakers. These ones I captured last night. Knowledge transfers, trust, alignments, agendas, mandates, boundary crossing, common vision, relationship building, shared responsibilities. But for me, the central organizing theme that's come through is the one on partnerships. Yeah. And it's within this ecosystem that we keep speaking about that I want to frame my presentation today. It almost appears as if, collaboration is the new competition in lifelong learning. So I want you to keep that in mind as I present this afternoon. And the objective, I'm hoping that I will reach that objective of my presentation, is to look at how universities can contribute towards transferring knowledge, sharing expertise, and sharing resources. Yeah, so I'm going to give you a very local government perspective. I come from the city of Durban. It's on the eastern seaboard of South Africa, on the southern tip of Africa. Yeah, so in that pretty picture, you will see the iconic Moses Mabhida Stadium. We hosted the World Cup in 2010, and that period for us was a defining moment where we looked at how do we manage the city going forward. We prepared for the World Cup, how do we sustain the city? And how do we use knowledge and resources and partnerships to make that happen? So this presentation speaks to some extent towards that vision for the city of Durban. Yeah, so Durban's story about positioning itself as a learning city goes back to some 20 years. Yeah, and we became fixated about this idea of becoming a learning city, not within the UNESCO frame of reference, but for Durban itself. Yeah, so we asked a few questions almost 10, 15 years ago, and these questions look at how does partnership respond to some of the key developmental challenges in the city? How do we use a knowledge-based approach in this partnership relationship that we want to enlist? How do we draw in technical support to assist and provide options to respond to our key developmental challenges? And how do we create networks, the operative word being the net in the work that we do? Yeah. So around 2010, as I mentioned in the beginning, the city leadership provided or gave us a mandate, a core team of urban practitioners in the city. At the time, I was one of them in the team, to explore options for a mutually beneficial, sustained and forward-looking collaborative arrangement with local academia. So we identified 3 Durban-based universities. 2 of them are universities of technology. One of them is a open university in your terms. Yeah, so a research university. And in that 6 months that we started to do some groundwork, we came up with the framing or reference for a memorandum of agreement, yeah, with academia. So this was launched in 2011. I'm not going to read through that. Yeah, so the idea then was to look at how does this opportunity of working with local universities provide a pilot base for engagements with universities. And we identified 4 areas of collaboration. And these 4 areas of collaboration were broad, strategic, and it provided the flexibility for us to bring in other opportunities to co-create and to collaborate. Yeah. So the one was around co-creating evidence-based research and knowledge for programming and policy. We understood at that time that the mandate of local government was to provide services and to provide opportunities to better the lives of our citizens. But in that, we couldn't do it alone. We said, how do we bring in academic partners in this journey of providing options for Durban to consider in its developmental challenges? We understood that also at that time that universities have their own mandate, which is teaching, research and outreach, community engagement as part of the 3rd mission. So the idea then was to look at how does the city or local government almost become a pressure point for the universities and also remind universities of their own 3rd mission. Yeah, so the idea then was to make this university partnership work, and we moved in 2011 from this point of signing an agreement with 3 universities. Yeah, so that's the charter that we signed in 2011, and to 2019, where we brought in 6 additional partners who expanded the partnership with universities to respond much more vigorously to the social and economic challenges that we have in the city. We're now experimenting with a model which is a nexus between local government, which is the city of Durban, academic partners, all 8 of them, and business and industry. So this triangulation, we're hoping, will better inform the options for the city of Durban. So we are in 2023, and this is what this triangulation looks like. So we're saying that if the city of Durban is a shared space for all actors, all stakeholders in the city, and much more than seeing themselves as a cog in this learning space, the city of Durban, we're saying, is a learning laboratory. How do we make sure that each of the partners and actors contribute to this learning space? And if you look at the left-hand side, these are the inputs that we would like to put into this nexus. And what we want out of this is, on the right-hand side, we want to see regional growth. We want to see evidence-based research informing policy, informing practice. We want to see a collective social and economic impact in the city of Durban. And we also want to respond to some of the key challenges, one of them being entrepreneurship deficits and youth development. Yeah. So in that, we're saying we want to see these cogs move in the right direction, align themselves to a common vision, to a common local agenda, which is providing options for the city of Durban, given that they have a shared responsibility in the city. And we're hoping at some point, it's a long journey, we're saying, but we're quite new in this process. We want to see how does Durban respond as an engaged city and turn that cog to move forward. So some evidence of some of the implementation co-created projects. Okay, for some reason this doesn't seem to be responding. Let me see if I do this. Okay, my presentation is stuck. Okay, so these are little tissues of trust we built with the university partners, and these are opportunities for engagement together with the university partners. And these are live projects that we started to co-create. So we're saying, within the built environment space, we want to bring the opportunities together with the university partners. So whether it's urban infrastructure planning or working on radio astronomy or biodiversity management, these are projects and programs that we have worked together over the last 10, 15 years. Yeah, so we've seen certainly higher education institutions as a resource to local government, and there's evidence of that in the live projects we are creating. So knowledge creation, looking at transdisciplinary research, and identifying the city as a research focus area are what's embedding this partnership. So what does this mean for UNESCO's partnership in the, and Durban's ascent to being a learning city? It's about strategic collaborations as a vehicle for knowledge deficits, using the triple helix relationship, knowledge exchange, virtual networking, skills enhancements, empowerment opportunities, and using evidence-based research as an option to inform the city, bringing in innovations in the built environment. Colleagues, I will leave it there given the my limited time. If there's any opportunities for you to connect with me, here's my email address. Thanks, colleagues.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Pillay. I'd now like to introduce our fourth speaker online. Ms. Amalia Creus is the Vice Dean of the Faculty of Information and Communication Sciences from the Open University of Catalonia, Spain.
Good morning. My name is Amalia Creus. It is a pleasure and an honor to be taking part in this international conference. This video is coming from Barcelona. I'm very sorry that I cannot be with you all in Shanghai today, but I hope that even from a distance, this brief presentation can contribute in some way to the discussion. Under the general topic of the session, I will focus my presentation on the particular contribution of online universities in addressing local and global challenges through community engagement. To this end, I will share with you the experience of my university, Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, the Open University of Catalonia, and explain some particular projects that we are currently promoting. Let me start by saying that Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, the Open University of Catalonia, WOC, is an online university. Our educational model is fully online. All our courses are taught in a virtual campus where students learn through digital technologies, mostly in a synchronous mode. Our educational community is a global community of more than 87,000 students, over 104,000 graduates, and more than 6,000 teaching staff, including faculty members and affiliated teachers. As you can see, we are a community of 200,000 people distributed around the world. So we are facing the challenges, and I would say also the amazing opportunities of keeping engaged with this large community through our virtual campus. It is true that virtual campuses carry the danger of disengaging people if appropriate opportunities to enhance interaction and collaboration are not created. But at the same time, online universities bring great opportunities to connect people and communities in a very flexible way beyond the limits of physical spaces. So, from our experience, virtual campuses can actually enrich the transformative potential of higher education. At Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, the Open University of Catalonia, we are working to making sure that the opportunities offered by virtuality are translated into policies and practices that empower people, both individual and communities, to promote social progress. But what do we mean by empowering people to promote social progress? To answer this question, I will look at a particular framework which I believe can bring some inspiration to the discussion today. And this is global citizenship education. This powerful framework promoted by UNESCO aims to empower learners to become responsible and active global citizens. Global citizenship education serves, in fact, as a very inspirational umbrella that guides many actions and initiatives we are currently promoting, with the aim of helping our students to develop core competencies that allow them to become proactive contributors to a more peaceful, tolerant, and inclusive world. So a first institutional initiative that I would like to highlight is that from 2019, WOC decided to include global and ethical commitment as a core competency. This institutional decision, which directly impacts the curriculum, implies that all our training programs should ensure that the students learn how to act in an honest, ethical, sustainable, socially responsible way, respecting human rights and diversity, both in academic and professional practice. This is actually the definition of global and ethical commitment competence in our study plans. To include this competency in the curriculum is a relevant institutional decision, not only for the commitment to the students' learning, but also because this decision led us to prepare and train the entire faculty to conduct community-engaged methodologies in their courses. So, from a very practical perspective, the inclusion of this core competence based on global citizenship education guides us to boost student active participation in projects that address global issues. So what I will do now is briefly share a few examples. The participatory final projects allow our students to carry out research in collaboration with a non-profit organization that are part of their urban fabric. They follow a co-creative process based on the principles of participatory research, where students and the organization jointly define the problem to address, the research objectives, and share the entire learning process. It is actually an excellent opportunity for students to gain in-depth knowledge of relevant social problems and also put into play skills such as teamwork, decision-making, and the analysis of complex problems. We also promote a program that provides open access to specialization courses and language courses to refugees and asylum seekers. This initiative incorporates a mentoring program in which our students voluntarily welcome refugees at the virtual campus and provide personalized mentoring during their learning experience. So mentoring programs such as this one seeks to enhance students' fundamental values for global citizenship, like respect for diversity, empathy, open-mindedness, justice, and equity. This one here is a project which aims to promote employability in rural areas because in Spain there is a major problem of rural depopulation. In addition to offer scholarships to young people from rural areas to study online, we promote an internal prize for research done by our students on this topic. The objective of this initiative is to generate synergies between urban and rural areas with the active participation of our students. And finally, Folio is a techno-pedagogical tool created at our university, which connects students with peers, teachers, and the professional world. It is an online interface where students can showcase their learning outcomes with the entire university community and beyond. So Folio is based on a portfolio pedagogical model that enhances peer-to-peer learning, and it is currently being used by about 6,000 students. So to conclude my presentation, may I highlight some common threads of these different initiatives I have just shared. First, as I mentioned, the will to contribute to the education of global citizens through the curriculum. Second, the use of participatory learning methodologies based on co-design that enhances connection between the university and local communities. And finally, the reinforcement of key social skills of both students and teachers by promoting synergies between learning and civic commitment. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. I will say my time is up now. So thank you so much for your attention. All the very best from Barcelona, and keep enjoying the conference.
Thank you so much, Professor Creus. Our fifth and final speaker will be Professor Roberta Piazza, who is Professor of Education at the University of Catania, Italy, and also Associate Director of Pascal, which is an international network.
Thank you so much. I'll do my best to stay on schedule. I'm aware that the last speaker, everyone wants to go to the bench. So my presentation will start with some consideration on the role of the university in fostering the development of learning cities. And then we will consider the role of academics and the change required in the way we teach and engage students, an aspect that has been already stressed in this morning presentation. So, many studies about the role of university in regional development have stressed that capabilities of academic institutions to contribute to social, economic, cultural developments of the cities and regions where they are allocated are far from being fully realized. The university occupies a central role in the strengthening of integrated local and regional development plans and change. The knowledge created, the experience possessed, the professionalism of the educators involved constitute an essential element which can be used by the leadership of the university to spread the learning culture and to contribute to social, cultural, and economic growth. However, implementation concerning university engagement require more awareness of the role played by the university in overcoming the multiple crises facing towns and cities nowadays. These ideas have emerged from several international studies which were conducted with the aims of exploring the opportunities that universities have to measure their performance in building a learning culture a learning city using the positive effects on community developments. The contribution that university can offer to the creation of learning cities largely determined by the connection between academic knowledge and the city through an extensive and dense network of external relations. However, it must be noted that the weak existence of links and uncertain intentionality of these links with the city can characterize this relationship. Without these links and without the awareness of the role played by university in the community development, academic knowledge and values cannot flow into the local region, and the city cannot benefit from university support. Okay. And there are several strategic approaches that higher education institutions can take to contribute to lifelong learning. First, they can broaden the scope of their target population and offer learning content to a wider demographic. By broadening the knowledge to more people, universities can better respond to social and economic challenges and support sustainable practices. University can also promote lifelong learning in other ways, such as through public dissemination of scientific knowledge, local partnership, and awareness-raising activities. However, for higher education institutions to transform into lifelong learning institution, they are expected to be more sensitive to the realities of adult learners, helping them not only to acquire skills and knowledge, but also to become active participants in society and improve their quality of life. In responding to broader societal needs, the engaged university plays a role in local development, providing lifelong learning and other services that actively contribute to shaping or transforming the social, cultural, and economic circumstances of local communities. The strategic role of universities in promoting holistic learning at local level is well expressed by the emergence of learning cities in the world. So to better understand the learning city models, we can refer to the quintuple helix model of innovation. This model provides a framework that brings together academia, government, business, civil societies, and environment. Providing a framework for the creation of links between different stakeholders to common interests and goals, these models enable small steps toward collective solution and incremental progress, which is an effective approach to complex issues such as those faced by learning cities. So given this conceptual framework, the question we should ask ourselves is how we, as academics, can contribute to the development of learning cities to our daily work. The challenge is to shift from the focus from teaching, research, and service to learning, discovery, and engagement. And that means refocusing our scholarship agenda and place students at forefront, and to elevate public service well beyond the current conception of public service that emphasizes a one-way transfer of university expertise to the public. In my perspective, efforts should have been primarily focused on two key aspects. Firstly, integrating engagement goals into curriculum pathways and identifying the necessary competencies to be developed in students through a revision of teaching practices. The focus is on a process of collective awareness for engagement in concrete initiatives. Secondly, rethinking our role as academics. Transformative learning can enhance engagement because it's very essence is to promote critical self-reflection, leading to different worldviews and to behavior change. The responsibility to ensure that such worldviews and behavior change have a restorative foundation is ours. A responsibility that is at the heart of universities' mandate and activities, but at the same time pushing us to adopt a different paradigm. The complexity of the challenge in the coming years called for the reconsideration not only of teaching and learning practices from a competency acquisition perspective, but more broadly, the underlying motivation that support teaching and learning. The role of education cannot be limited to the construction of competencies, but should contribute in students and educators to the development of a deeper understanding of their place in the world and to view education as a common good. Moving from what we learn to why we learn and what we teach and why we teach. So there cannot be transformative learning without transformative teaching. It should include, among other elements, an emphasis on personal experience, inter and transdisciplinarity, service learning arrangements, self-organized engagement with knowledge, value and emotions, and living lives. The United Nations Economic Commission for Europe highlights what educators need for achieving transformation to adopt holistic approaches and envisioning change. On the other hand, students themselves have to be recognized as a member of a community of scholars. The Global Student Declaration prepared for the UNESCO World Higher Education Conference 2022 called for students that should be engaged with the ecosystem of academic citizenship, incorporating both learning about wider society and contributing to society in terms of learning and research. The facilitation of learning and research opportunities by universities and the state should provide opportunity for students to exercise civic participation in research, pedagogy and practice. So what we need to do is to reimagine our teaching and learning practice. This change will require a pedagogy that engages students in co-learning and co-creating our shared future. To this end, I will present now two experiences implemented by the University of Catania, Italy, where I belong. They have in common the same perspective. They start from a learning experience that sees students and teachers as co-protagonists and make them become conscious actors of the region in which they live. So Alessandra, the girl you see in the middle photo, did their master thesis on how to support the development of learning cities in rural areas. While she was working on her thesis, she thought she could not only study learning cities, but try to implement one in her hometown. Taking a cue from learning festivals around the world, she organized one, first involving her family, convincing the mayor to take on this vision and grant her the place to realize the festival, and then slowly involving part of the community to take part in the festival. And now she's already planning the second learning festival for 2024, and the administration is thinking to giving her the project more convincing support, given last year's success. The second experience, organized by the university, the starting point was a workshop entitled The Landscape of Mafias, involving students for the Department of Educational Sciences and students from civil engineering and architecture. The participants made a short video reportage on the degradation of Catania's suburbs and the need for beauty that characterizes these places. Thanks to the interdisciplinary workshop, the participants were able to study the relationship between organized crime and the landscape. understood both in its physical forms and in those of social experience, starting from the perception of the people who live it. From this experience, the students then join a project called Orti Insieme, which means gardening together, and which was implemented as part of the workshop with the Save the Children Punto Lucio Center, which promotes free activities for children and young people in the suburbs, such as study support, sport activities, and art and music workshop, and other cultural and recreational activities. Starting from this experience, the students proposed to the parents of the Punto Luce children a project to redevelop the center garden for the children and their families, so that it would become a space to be used as a vegetable garden, playground, and relaxation area for the parents. The aim was to share knowledge and skills with all participants to build a place that parents could feel as their own. During the collective planning and design activities, parents, students, teachers, some young people, and volunteers became a learning community. The result of this experience led the students to create an association dedicated to the regeneration of abandoned spaces in the city. I don't think it's possible to imagine a better outcome than this. So just to conclude, we should encourage our students to identify and engage with issues they are passionate about. They will surprise us with how they don't just understand these issues, but employ what they have learned from us to contribute to the desired transformation. And thank you for listening.
Wonderful. Thank you to all 5 of our speakers. Thank you again for the discipline to stay to that very short, limited time. I think we all benefited from hearing from each of the 5 speakers. Before I let our virtual panelists go, knowing that we have a very short time to engage them, does anyone have any burning questions, particularly for our online speakers? Any burning questions for any of the other panelists? All right. Well, if I may, I'd like to conclude with 3 takeaways. The first is that higher education in general needs to increase access to the more vulnerable groups of learners. The second that I heard in every single one of these presentations is that co-creation is the mechanism that builds trust and mutual respect with community partners. And lastly, something beautiful that I heard was that our imperative, our mandate as providers of lifelong learning is to appeal and reach humans with a very wide range of lived experiences, to connect local contexts to global opportunities, and to connect diverse learners beyond the limits of physical spaces. Said simply, learning to do, learning to be, and learning to work together. With that, please join me in a big round of applause for our speakers.